So for the Great British Debates, I'm asking, do you believe that there is actually a climate crisis? Well, joining me in the studio are my meteorologist, Jim Dale, also Director of CAR26, Lois Perry. All right, Jim, talk to me. Climate is happening. What do we do?
It's been happening for some time.
Well, since the Earth began.
Well, of course it has. Of course it has. But it's accelerated over the last 100 years, since the Industrial Revolution. And every single graph that I look at in terms of temperature profile, CO2 profile, it's exaggerated itself to an immense proportion in the last 30 years, particularly.
How long have we been keeping records?
Meteorological records have been kept for about, give or take, about 100 years, maybe a little bit more.
So you said in the last 100 years, but this is the only time we've been keeping the records. I mean,
no,
what if we'd had records for 200-300 years?
Yeah, look, we can look at other aspects. We can look at tree rings. They're not complete, of course. You don't need to. The period from the late 1800s all the way to now, the sharp increase in terms of CO2 levels and then temperature is indisputable. This is why those 700 scientists.
Wasn't there an era where the CO2 was a lot higher before we were even on the Earth? I mean, just out of interest, I thought there were.
The Earth was a different thing then, a different mechanism. Gondwana land, it was joined, or the land masses were joined.
Was there a time?
This is what we're talking about now. Is that, yes, there was, of course there was, but we're talking about an ecosystem that we now exist in. We talk about the Earth as being one ecosystem, and I heard Jim Davison talking about the movement. You know, well, let's have another degree or two. Well, think about this: the ecosystem that we live in. Okay, we all live in it and around it, and you nudge that a little bit and it starts to have these kind of effects. So take yourself, for example. We all live at 37 degrees Celsius. That's our body temperature, a little bit more than that. Put yourself a degree more. Where we are at this moment in time, we're 1.1 degrees more than we were 30 years ago.
Your body will regulate itself by sweating, which is what the Earth does.
Just let me make the point. So if you go at 1.1, you're starting to feel ill, without a shadow of a doubt. Your temperature's gone up, etc. Then increase it by another degree, which is the direction of travel that we're going to 2 degrees, you're going to be in bed. Maybe knocking on death's door.
My body will do a feedback.
Yeah,
what that feedback is, we might have calculated. Lois?
Yeah, obviously I completely disagree with everything you said. Respectfully disagree, as per usual, Jim. I wanted to draw your attention to the University of Huntsville, Alabama, satellite-based temperatures over 30 years, which actually show that what you're saying is completely untrue. And the University of Huntsville, Alabama, actually reports satellite data, so that's the entire world, not just some little temperature gauges near airports in hot places, which is where most of the stuff comes from that you talk about. And they report to the US Senate and the Department for Energy via a guy called John Christie. And, you know, we've had in 1998 and in 2016, we are actually half a degree colder now than then because of the El Niño effect. So actually, the data does not support what you're saying. Also, the same university that produces the data for the State Department and NASA has shown that there's no correlation over the last 30 years whatsoever with CO2 emissions and temperature. I've got the graphs. I can email them to you. This is based on satellite data.
Remember this IPC report? This is
seven. They're highly politicised, the IPC.
It's not. This is 91 countries that have got eminent scientists that have studied for 8 years. This is not.
Did they all go to COP27?
Well,
whether they did or whether they didn't. Look,
their jets would have been exempt from the carbon emission tax on their private jets, as are yachts. So what do you think about that?
I think what you're doing is kind of nitpicking. You're not looking at the bigger picture.
Oh, no, I am looking at the bigger picture.
No, you're not. You're taking one university. Strangely enough, Alabama got hit by tornadoes this morning along with Mississippi.
What's that got to do with the price of fish?
Because it's weather. We're talking weather.
No,
the end game here is weather and what it does. So I got a little quote from yourself. I see it one time. You're saying last year's 40.3 degrees that we had in the UK.
I'm so glad you raised that.
Was a little bit hot. Now in the UK, just to say that little bit hot. Actually, according to the ONS, killed 2,500 people.
Actually,
over
the
65
severe cold kills more people. I'm so glad you raised that, Jim, because actually that particular temperature was recorded at Coningsby.
Coningsby, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And it was right next to, this is brilliant, this is what they always do, this is right next to a concrete runway that supports 2 squadrons of typhoons, one of the hottest places in the UK. And apparently it went over 40 for 1 minute, then dropped back down again.
Let me tell you that there was many places that where if they weren't
But that
thwarted,
particular result, they chose the
were
hottest
just
place.
slightly
I wonder if the squad...
Can I just ask, why would they take that particular spot, though? I mean, it's going to be...
It's not
so
taking
hot.
it.
It's called an urban heat island.
Okay.
Yeah, meteorological observations are scientifically done. They've got to expose these temperature gauges in Stevenson screens, properly exposed so that they get an accurate record. And those records will be verified by the Met Office.
Of course they will, because they're all in the pay of the globalists.
Absolutely. It's not a case of being in the pay. It's a case of doing the right thing scientifically.
Do you not think that satellite-based temperatures, which include the temperatures of the oceans, are the most effective and best way to gauge world temperatures? Do you not? Can I just have your agreement that that is the best way to gauge a world temperature using global satellite data that includes the oceans?
The oceans are. Look, make it absolutely clear. The oceans.
Is that the best way, though?
Not look. The way that you measure, the way that it's, and it isn't just about temperature. It's about CO2. It's about the weather per se. It's wind. It's everything that goes with it. So the oceans are taken a part of the equation. The temperatures are taken both at the surface and down below. Oceanographers do that. I used to do that when I was in the Royal Navy. Exactly the same thing.
Right.
And you do this. You know, you don't do it to make up stories. You've got to remember the IPC report. 700 odd. Eminent scientists spent 8 years, not 5 minutes on the back of a stamp, trying to pick out little bits
just another
and
point about your extreme temperature.
Last one,
it's quite interesting that you say that about the extreme temperature in the UK this summer, because actually, do you know what? It was balanced out because Australia had their coldest summer they've ever had.
Do you know what?
And we need to look at the thing as a whole, don't we, Jim? Not just talk about England.
Lois, let me make something clear. Climate change, global warming, does not necessarily, from place to place, mean that you're going to just go into a massive heat island. You do get there's a better word for all of this, which is chaos, which creates the difficulties and the hazards and the deaths that we're seeing all over the world, including today.
I completely
just one final thing. It's Earth Day today.
On an Earth Day.
It's a little present for Lois. As,
what about me?
Either one or the other. Okay, now you can have it.
You come on my show.
Yeah,
You've got on my show. There you go. Something green. There you go.
Thank you. Anyway,
come on my show, then give it somebody else a gift.
I know.
I have to convince somebody, don't I? Come on.
I say let's look at the satellite data, not airport
look at
data.
that.
Well, listen, that was, of course, meteorologist, I can't even say it, Jim Dale, and director of CAR26 Lois Perry. Thank you very much. So let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Daisy says climate change has been happening since the creation of the planet the Earth. John says our climate is changing in a manner no different from the last million years. Beth says in the next million years or so, temperatures will rise so high that our planet will burn to a crisp. I don't think we could stop it if it was going to do that anyway. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with our Great British debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you believe that there is a climate crisis? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy, also broadcaster and political commentator Sam Dowler. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.